Leave the gun, take the cannolis. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cinematic Treasures. I'm your host, Chris, and I had promised this episode. I swear it was like the last 3 episodes I've promised this one. And I finally am here on remote at my friend's house. Jay, he's here.
Hi.
And the reason we're on remote at Jay's house for this episode is because we are going to be reviewing one of the greatest films ever made, according to quite a few and a lot of people, and quite a few American Film Institute lists, The Godfather. I had been promising this for a while, and I came here on remote because Jay is a huge fan of this film and probably bigger than I am. And tell me, though, dude, when was the first time you actually saw this film? How old were you?
I was in high school.
Okay, so you weren't like younger sneaking to see it when your parents didn't know about it.
No.
And what was your first take when you first saw it?
I was confused.
You know, it's funny. A lot of people were confused when they first saw it. I just let a friend borrow my old DVDs, and she had an issue. She kept asking me all these questions. And Matt, my son, he just recently watched it, and he had a whole bunch of questions during it. I guess it can be a confusing film if you don't know what you're looking at.
Very true.
I know at your wedding, you had the Godfather theme played on the violin.
Yes. No, the trumpet.
I thought it was the violin.
No, it was
Played it with
trumpet.
violin. Okay. Well, my mistake. I apologize if I forgot. This film is a huge undertaking. It took me quite a while to bang this show together, so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's roll right into it. All right. Episode 5, Cinematic Treasures, The Godfather. Well, I might as well start right here. The director, Francis Ford Coppola. Screenplay, Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola. This was the first time Mario was the author of the novel, and this is the first time he actually wrote a screenplay. I don't ever remember a director up until then allowing a novelist to work on a screenplay with them. Of course, this movie came out before you and I were born, so... it was based on Puzo's book, The Godfather. It was produced by Albert S. Ruddy, and it's funny because I didn't know this, and his first job in Hollywood is he produced Hogan's Heroes on television. Cinematography, Gordon Willis. Edited by William Reynolds and Peter Zinner. The music was Nino Rota, Italian composer. Paramount Pictures and Alfran Productions were the companies. Distributed by Paramount. The runtime of the film is 175 minutes, which comes out to 2 hours and 55 minutes exactly. It had a budget of $6 to $7.2 million, and this was 1972. That was a lot, I guess, back then. And you got to remember, movie theaters back then, the screens were only 1 screen, 2 screens. The film was so long, they actually didn't know how they were going to run a lot of showings on 1 screen with a 3-hour film. The box office scooped it up, $250 to $291 million it took in at the box office. Like I said, today we got Metroplexes that have like 6 to 10 theaters. It premiered on March 14th, 1972 at the Lowe's State Theater. It actually opened on August 29th, 1920. Remember I told you when I was putting the show together, I couldn't believe how every time I found something out about the film, it opened up another hole or knocked down another door into another part that you never knew about. This film was a massive undertaking. Like I said, it opened August 29th, 1921. The Lowe's Theater was part of a 16-story office building in Times Square. The seating was only 3,200 capacity. It was the first theater on Broadway. It cost $1 million and was managed by Joseph Vogel, who later became president of Lowe's Incorporated and then MGM. It had a wide release on March 24th, 1972. You ready for this?
Go ahead.
The cast. There's a lot of people on this list. We can break this down any which way. I don't know if you knew this or not. We'll start with Al Pacino, the great Al Pacino. Michael Corleone. This was his first movie role. Did you know that?
No.
Yes, he was actually doing theater work when they found him. Marlon Brando, Vito Corleone, the great James Caan, Sonny Corleone, and don't mind the fact that I say great in front of all these actors' names because they were good actors.
Yeah.
There was no CGI back then. They had to act. They had to do everything from scratch. Diane Keaton, Kay Adams Corleone, Talia Shire, Connie Corleone. Talia Shire is famous for playing Adrian
Correct.
in the Rocky films. And we got Gianni Russo was Carlo Rizzi. Now, Carlo was married to Connie in the film, and he was abusive to her in the film. It's a great scene when Jimmy Cahn's character, Sonny, has enough of him beating on his sister and goes and beats the hell out of him in public with the trash can. That's a great scene. John Cazale, Fredo Corleone. This guy, he passed away young. He was only in a few pictures. He was in The Deer Hunter with Robert De Niro. He was also played opposite Pacino in Dog Day Afternoon, the bank robbery movie. I could keep going on and on and on. Peter Clemenza was played by Richard S. Castellano. Virgil Solanzo, the antagonist in the picture, Al Lettieri. Al Martino played Johnny Fontaine. Now, what do you know about Al Martino? Al Martino was a crooner. You know, Tony Bennett and Sinatra. Man, I'll tell you, this list goes on and on. Lenny Montana was Luca Brasi. Did you know he was a real mafia guy?
Yeah.
Alex Rocco played Mo Green. Jack Waltz, the movie producer, was played by John Marley. Bruno Tagliato was played by Tony Giorgio. A lot of Italian names in this picture. I think that's the way they want to. The great Robert Duvall, who's done just about everything, played Tom Hagen. The family concierge. Victor Rendina was Philip Tattaglia, another antagonist in the picture. He was the opposite of the Don. He played he was the Don of the Tattaglia family. Were you shocked at the violence in this film?
No.
Was that the first time you'd seen a mafia movie?
No.
What other mafia films had you seen?
Goodfellas.
You saw Goodfellas before The Godfather.
Yep.
I thought Once Upon a Time in America was one of your favorites.
Well, that's good too, but violence-wise, Goodfellas more violent.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think The Godfather was more about a story about family versus the actual violence side of it.
Yeah.
In fact, later on, I'm going to ask you a question because I always fight with people on this question. What's the greatest mafia movie? And there's three choices in my opinion. So Paramount Pictures obtained the rights to the novel for $80,000 before it gained popularity. Studio execs had issues finding a director. You know, Coppola was on the outs at the time.
Yeah.
The studio hadn't liked the films he had done, and he was notorious for fighting with studio execs the way he wanted things done. Coppola took the job. Disagreement followed over several casting characters, particularly Vito and Michael. So the studio wanted other people to play Vito and Michael. And Michael, believe it or not, they were really rooting for Jimmy Caan. They wanted him to, be involved. So filming took place primarily in a location around New York and in Sicily and was complete on schedule. The Godfather was regarded as one of the most influential films ever made. In 1990, it was added to the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress, deemed culturally, historically significant. The film, behind Citizen Kane, had two sequels, Godfather 2 and 3. It was ranked behind Citizen Kane. And let me tell you something. I'm going to start this argument right now. You've seen Citizen Kane, yes?
No.
No. Well, you need to see it. Citizen Kane, to me, is not the best picture ever. It's at every top of every list of best picture ever. It's usually Citizen Kane, Casablanca, and The Godfather. I'm a huge Casablanca fan. I saw Citizen Kane. And let me tell you something. I love Orson Welles. It's a great movie. It looks great. It's a noir picture, black and white, but I just don't think it's strong enough to beat a movie like The Godfather. This is where I disagree with this, the list, and it's a shame because even movie critics and books have been written, and they still put Citizen Kane over above everything else, and I just don't get it. I really don't. When we come back, we're going to have some more about the plot of the film, the writing of the film. We're going to talk about the soundtrack. We're going to talk about the legacy of the picture. And all kinds of good stuff. So hang tight. My buddy Jay's still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still. And we'll be right back. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. Famous words from the Don. Welcome back, everybody. Cinematic Treasures covering The Godfather on location at my buddy Jay's house. So on to the plot of the film. Now, on this show, I don't like to give away too much of the movie because I know that a lot of people haven't seen the film, believe it or not. 1945, New York City. The Corleone family, led by Don Vito Corleone, listens to requests from people on his daughter's wedding day, which no Sicilian can turn down on his daughter's wedding day. As Christmas time approaches, a drug baron named Virgil the Turk Solanzo asks Don Vito to invest in his narcotics business. Vito declines and is suspicious of Solanzo's connections to the Tagliata crime family. So, I mean, that's it. I don't want to give away too much of the film, but you could dive into it any way you want. Well, I mean, there's a lot more to the film than that.
So let me say that the plot of the film, drugs killed the mob, and I'll leave it at that.
They did. In fact, in the scene where he's meeting with Solanzo and he's asking him and telling him the Tagliata, you'll get 30% guaranteed, and he said he would pay the Tagliatas out of his half of the money. And the Don doesn't want anything to do it. You know, prostitution, he says, gambling. It's a dirty thing, but if he started using drugs, then he'd lose the judges he was buddies with and the police, and he felt that once they knew he was doing drugs, it's a dirty business.
The exact words were the easy bite, and once you get into drugs and smuggling, it's bad. It's bad business.
Yeah, it doesn't help, but you know, eventually, like later on, there's a scene where him and Tom and Sonny are sitting there, and he says, "Well, what's your decision going to be, Pop?" But Tom tells him, eventually they could, this drug thing, they get on top of it. The other families could get more power and then start taking the judges and the power away from the Corleones, and that's the whole reason that's another reason with the drug thing, why Michael eventually, when he gets drugged into the whole situation, while he eventually in the other films tries to go legitimate. In fact, in this film, he tries to go to Vegas and get the family legitimate and move them out there.
But drugs are everywhere. It doesn't matter what business gets into, drugs are there.
And I'll tell you something else too. The drug in our time right now, the fentanyl drugs are just totally out of control. But I don't want to get into those situations. Let's stick to the movies here. Let's roll into production and development. Okay, here's something you might not have known. Both Danny Thomas and Burt Lancaster expressed interest in adapting the book. Paramount's Robert Evans wanted to make the film ethnic to the core and wanted it directed by an Italian-American. You know who his first choice was?
Who?
Sergio Leone. Sergio Leone did the spaghetti westerns, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, and they all filmed it out in the desert there. I think that would have been an interesting choice. I don't know if his direction would have been the same as Coppola's.
I think it would have been totally opposite.
I think it would have been too, because Leone was known for his violent westerns, and I think the film would have turned out more violent. Leone turned it down because he was working on his own original gangster film. I mentioned it earlier. Once Upon a Time in America was Sergio Leone, and that is one of your favorites. And you told me to watch that. Boy, you talk about a long movie.
Yeah.
But here you got another film about friendship.
That is true.
Yeah, and it is about two friends. It stars Robert De Niro and
James Woods.
James Wood, the great James Woods. Man, is there anything he hasn't done good? I always wondered in Casino if anybody else could have played Lester, the old pimp. I think that would have been...
He played a good part.
Yeah, I don't know who else could have played that. Paramount execs wanted the film shot on the backlot, but Coppola objected. Here we go with Coppola again, causing issues. The executives wanted to be shot in contemporary Kansas City. Coppola wanted it to be set just like the novel in the 40s and 50s. Coppola's reasons included Michael Corleone's spell in wartime Marine Corps, the emergence of corporate America, and America in the years after World War II. Gulf Western exec Charles Bluedorn was upset with Coppola over a number of screen tests without finding people to play the roles. So you ready for this? This is why they didn't want Coppola. He was a nagger, and he just wanted it his way. And because of his screen tests and his indecisiveness and conflicts with Paramount, it cost the studio $40,000 a day because of his screw-ups. On April 14th, 1970, Mario Puzo was hired to work a screenplay with Coppola for $100,000, along with a percentage of the film's profits. When they approached Coppola, and I never knew this until I saw that show, The Offer, which was the making of The Godfather I told you about, that Coppola had gambling issues, and he needed $10,000 immediately to pay his gambling debts before he started working on the film.
Do you know what gambling debt was for?
No.
He was mob hookup. mob related.
He owed the mafia?
Yep.
Oh, jeez. Unbelievable. The Italian American Civil Rights League, led by mobster Joseph Colombo, who I never knew about until I saw the offer, which was very good. I believe it runs on Paramount Plus. It's about a 10-episode show about the making of The Godfather. Joseph Colombo maintained the film emphasized stereotypes about Italian Americans and wanted all use of the words mafia and Costa Nostra removed from the script. Costa Nostra is another way of saying mafia. Or Albert S. Ruddy, who was the producer for the Hogan's Heroes, who was running things, personally met with Joe Colombo and promised those words would not be used anywhere in the film.
Do you know that Ruddy was an Irishman?
Yes, and I only learned that from the film. And at first, Colombo didn't even want him to make the movie. He told him to shut it down.
Yep.
But he once he told him that it celebrates Italians, not incriminating them or criminalizing them and showing them that criminals or bad side to them. He went along with it as long as the name Mafia was out. An actual war broke out with other mafias during the production because they wanted Joe Colombo removed from the Italian American Association.
They thought The Godfather was going to be a gangster movie when it's more of a family movie.
It is the way it was written. And really, I mean, Coppola, he just went with it. He went with it and he made sure that it was just like the book. And if they had gone anywhere else with it, it may have turned into a full-blown mafia movie. Puzo wanted Brando to play the Don, while Coppola wanted Brando, and that was fine. But he also wanted Sir Laurence Olivier, which would have been cool, but I just don't think. You know, it's like any other movie. Once you see somebody in that role, how could you even imagine anybody in that role except that person who played it? I can't see anybody but Brando playing that. The part of Johnny Fontaine was given to Al Martino, the crooner. Now, here's a favor for viewers. Did you know Frank Sinatra didn't even want the damn film to be made?
Oh, I knew
Now,
that.
look, it's notorious that Sinatra had mob connections.
That's correct.
And Frank Sinatra thought it was somebody parodying him and making fun of him in the film. And it wasn't. It wasn't. It didn't turn out to be that way. Sinatra threatened Martino to bar him from Las Vegas if he took the role.
Did you know that Frank Sinatra went to Colombo and told Colombo to try to shut the movie down?
Yes, there's actually a scene in that TV show about the movie, about the making of the film, that shows the character, whoever's playing Sinatra, he calls him and he literally says, "This movie ain't happening." You know, I didn't know Sinatra had that kind of push.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, it makes me want to believe that Sinatra actually, his career was because of the mafia, probably.
Well, that's how it got started.
But I don't understand. Al Martino what kind of threat was he to Sinatra at the time? He had a great voice. His songs were good. They just weren't as popular as Sinatra's. So Sinatra thinks he can just bully anybody right out of Las Vegas. I'll tell you, dude, it was a different time in Vegas. It was a different time in that era, and guys just got away with whatever the hell they wanted.
That's correct.
I don't think Dino and the rest of the Rat Pack were as powerful as Frank was at that time. We've covered a lot.
Yeah.
And we're still not done. So when we come back for our third segment, we're going to talk about the music of the film, awards, reception. We're going to break down AFI's list and my favorite part of the show, the home media part of the show, and the cat, which is hanging out with us here on the tabletop.
Yeah.
Seems to enjoy eating the wires for the microphone. So stick around, everybody. We got more of this Godfather program to come. It's nothing personal, Sonny. It's just business. Words of Michael Corleone to his older brother. One thing we didn't mention that you just mentioned to me on the break is, when how they got Brando to speak the way he did, and why he talked like this, and he talked like this. Apparently they stuffed cotton balls in his mouth to make him sound more.
That's correct.
Astute. One other scene I want to mention, and this was a key scene to me. There was a lot of key scenes in the film. You and I were just talking about the Sicilian part of the film when they go to Sicily. When Michael goes to Sicily, there's a chain of events there, without giving too much away. There's a chain of events there that if they had gone a different direction,
Correct.
it And it also showed the reach of the mafia. Michael thought he was safe, but he ended up not being safe. There's always somebody in the mafia that turns their back and takes money over protecting their own.
You know why?
Please tell me.
Because the Italian family had links in Sicily with the Don and made a phone call and found out Michael was there.
Found out where he was, yeah. He's lucky he wasn't killed. Paramount did not want Al Pacino. They fought hard against Pacino because he didn't have anything under his belt. They wanted Robert Redford or Warren Beatty. Now, you know both those actors, and if nobody knows who Warren Beatty or Robert Redford are, please look them up. They have great movies, great actors, but I can't see either one of them playing Michael. Not to mention they were both older. Pacino was young.
True.
At that point. It's just another one of those, I can't see anybody else. I can't see anybody playing Tom Hagen. Yeah, I can't see anybody playing any of these roles. The casting was just perfect. I guess in a way, Coppola's delays may have cost the studio in the end, but his delays were met with reward for finding the right people to do it. Here's a special subject close to your heart, the music of the film.
Right.
Very, very iconic. Coppola wanted to hire Italian composer Nina Roto to create the score. Roto was to relate the situations and characters in the film into the score. So he had to perfectly place everything for each scene. It was released in 1972 on vinyl, which we have a copy right here in front of us. You know, it's ironic we have a cat here, your cat here, because in the film, the Don is petting a cat for most of the beginning of the movie in his office. It's very bizarre and strange that a cat just appears on the table.
Do you know that cat was great too, which we have?
Yes, absolutely. So it was released in 1972 on vinyl from Paramount, double vinyl, actually. I think it's double vinyl. I'll have to check on it. It was released in CD in 1991 by Geffen Records, and then digitally in August 18th, 2005 by Geffen. I guess Geffen bought the rights from Paramount.
You might be right.
The Godfather Waltz and the love theme from The Godfather are two of the bigger...
You mean A Rose is a Rose?
Yeah. Are the two of the bigger tracks on the soundtrack. There is an actual... there's a company called La La Land Records, which I just got the Die Hard soundtrack off. They do CDs, and they do special editions, and they actually did an expanded version of The Godfather. Now, I didn't bother getting it, but apparently there's extra tracks that were left on the cutting room floor.
The one song that always relates to me is hold on. It's A Rose is a Rose, but it's what Vito Corleone liked that Michael sings in one of the Godfathers. Oh, no,
no. You're thinking of Godfather 3, when his son sings it to him.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And he starts thinking of Apollonia and Sicily.
It's the exact words, the zit his own, which means to each his own.
Yep. It was the highest grossing film of 1972. Roger Ebert, the great Roger Ebert, praised Coppola's efforts, and Gene Siskel gave it a 4 out of 4 and says it was a good film. Gene Siskel, he was, if nobody knows, and I've talked about him before, Roger Ebert is, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert wrote for the Chicago Times and the Chicago Tribune, and they had a TV show on called Coming Attractions, and I believe that's what it was called. And they would just argue about the films, and Gene Siskel, he always seemed uptight to me. But these guys got so big, and I think I talked about this in one of my last podcasts. They got so big, they would even influence openings of movies if people went to see it or not. It's like whatever they said was gold. And apparently, you know, The Godfather was gold to them, so people went and seen it. Long before the internet, you know, long before we all watched Siskel and Ebert every Sunday.
You think about it, Chicago. Who's in Chicago or was in Chicago? Al Capone.
Yeah, and you know what? The book, The Family Corleone, which I read, which is a prequel to The Godfather, actually mentions Capone in the book. And apparently they didn't have their characters were at war with them, too, didn't like Capone. Yeah. Or his dealings. Awards for this film, the 30th annual Golden Globes. Wow, geez, 30th annual. You know, I think they're almost to 100 now. January 28th, 1973, it won Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Actor Brando. Best Score and Best Picture. It won a Grammy Award for Best Score. It won Oscar for Best Actor Brando again, Best Screenplay, and Best Picture. One of the things about the acceptance speech for Brando, he never showed up.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
He had a Native American girlfriend, and she showed up and said the reason he wasn't showing up was because he wasn't going to accept the award until her people would stop being oppressed.
Correct.
And actually, if you watch the footage, and you could see it online, she was booed off stage. People were very upset that Brando did not show up for his award. A quick note, what we were talking about before, the scene in the garden with Michael and his father. Through the whole film, Michael tries to stay away from the family business and tries to stay away from it. He goes into the military. He serves his service to his country. He comes back a hero. And even his father, the Don, doesn't want him involved in the business. Sonny's a hothead. Fredo was that smart of a guy. And he says to him, when he's talking to him about when whoever comes to you during the cilantro business is the traitor in the film, in the garden scene. And he says, what's the matter, Pop? That's not what's bothering you. And he says, I never wanted this for you, Michael. Senator Corleone, Mayor Corleone, President Corleone. He goes, there just wasn't enough time, Michael. There just wasn't enough time. And Michael tells him, I'm going to fix it, Pop. And I think that's one of the reasons why through most of the film, most of all that film and the second and third film, Michael is trying to get his family legit.
But if you think about it, Michael got enough drugs, so you can't get legit. It's very hard because drugs is in everything.
Yeah, unfortunately, it actually came back to haunt him in more ways than one, but we're not going to tell you why because we don't want to give away too much of the plot. AFI, are you familiar with AFI, American Film Institute?
Yes.
The Godfather, 1998, AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies, it fell at number 3. Now, see, here we go again. Citizen Kane, number 1. I'm telling you, I just don't agree with it. 2001, they did another list. AFI did 100 Years, 100 Thrills. It came in at number 11. In 2005, they did another list, 100 Years, 100 Movie Quotes. And, of course, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse came up, which is, if you remember the great movie ride in Disney, that was great. That went at the end of that when they showed that clip. In 2006, 100 Years of Film Scores, it came in at number 5. And in 2008, this is where the argument's going to be, 2008, it came at number 1 of the top 10 gangster films of all time. So I had leaned on this earlier about the gangster films. There's 3 gangster films. Well, there's 2 that I constantly go back and forth and ask people, what do you like better, Goodfellas or Casino? Which is better? And if you throw The Godfather in that mix, you got quite an argument on your hands.
Totally 2 different kinds of movies.
If you think about it, 3 different kinds of movies.
Well, no, Casino and Goodfellas. You have the East Coast and you have the West.
That's correct.
And you have gambling, money in the casino, where Goodfellas is more drug and the Lufthansa.
Yeah. That's the thing, though. I felt that The Godfather, all right. Once Upon a Time in America, if we throw that in there, I felt that film was about friendships. I feel that Casino was about friendships gone bad. If you really look at it, you got 3 friends and they screw everything up in the end, and they turn on each other.
You look at The Godfather, Once Upon a Time in America. It's 2 different ethnic groups too. Once Upon a Time in America was all based on it was Jewish based.
That's right.
And Godfather was based
Sicilian.
All Italian.
Right. And well, the Goodfellas was also based Sicilian.
No, it wasn't.
Not completely.
It was Irish and Italian.
Irish and Italian.
Because the main character, Ray Liotta, was Irish, and so was De Niro's role. He was Irish.
Yeah, he got involved his character in the film. Ray Liotta was involved because he was young and he met a mafia and he worked his way up through the ranks. But the thing is that I still think people argue that film's better because Ray Liotta's in it. It was a great performance, and it was a true story. The Godfather was not a true story.
Probably in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a family out there doing the same stuff that the Corleones did. All right, well, this has been an interesting segment. When we come back, we're going to do the legacy of the film. My favorite part of the whole thing, of course, the home media, which I push constantly on the show. Go buy your physical media, people. And we're going to do the pop culture. We're going to have a preview of the next show and our final thoughts when we come right back. Hey, Tom, can you get me off this time, for old time's sake?
Not this time, Sally.
Another great quote from The Godfather, our film for today's show. This has been epic. We're getting to the legacy part, and usually I research this stuff. What's the impact, cultural legacy of a film? But because we're on remote, and I know that you were an expert on the film, and I knew a lot about the film, I thought it would be interesting if we gave our opinion of the legacy of the picture. Why don't you start?
It set the mafia up for a certain kind of look. After the film, people saw the mafia a certain way when it was true.
Yeah, also the Italian American Club came out of it. I think a lot of positivity was shed light on the mafia, and it really didn't damn them. Even though new mafia, everyone knows it's a dirty business, and The Sopranos kind of, put them right back where that is. The Sopranos was a little more about family.
That's true.
Which was it was such a popular show. I think people just like that story, that mafia style story, and the real truth of it is that real mafia. When you talk about Al Capone, they were vicious killers.
You think about it, The Godfather and The Sopranos were all based on family.
That's correct. That's correct. They kind of went that role where Tony Soprano would do anything to protect his own.
They modernized The Godfather.
For the small screen, yes, I'd agree with that. It's also the fact that families in today's day and age, I don't know many families, and I'm sure they're out there, big families like that dine together, eat together. It's an important thing that has gone away from this generation. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, the mother's not there, the father's not there, or vice versa, or both. Kids, they don't have what we had when we grew up.
You think about it, Marlon Brando's part, he was shot, and the family gathered together. There was a problem. Now, with Tony Soprano, he had anxiety, and the family rallied behind him.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting in The Sopranos how they had him go into a shrink.
Yeah.
And she knew what he did for a living, and she wanted nothing to do with it, but she helped him anyway.
Correct.
I think the more people that see this film, unfortunately, the film is dated, but it's dated to where it's set in the time it was set. Like, for instance, when you see Michael go to the hospital to help his father when he's in the hospital bed after he was shot in the film, to protect him from anybody coming to assassinate him. When you see this hospital's ancient. Hospitals don't even look like this no more.
It's based in 1945.
Yeah, right after World War II, and that's why it looks so different. Even the nurses were wearing those funny little cone hats. But it's based in a period. I guess that doesn't take too much away from the film. But if somebody tried to make The Godfather today, first of all, I don't think it could happen.
No.
I think it was a huge undertaking at the time, and I just don't think a studio would want to invest money into it.
Correct.
My favorite part of the show, home media, which is what my show pushes. Buy your Laserdisc. I said Laserdisc. Buy your Blu-rays and 4Ks, people. Buy your DVDs. The Godfather was first released on VHS. Remember, for the longest time, you could only rent VHSs.
Correct.
You couldn't buy them. And finally, when they were for sale, they finally became cheaper. Did you own The Godfather on VHS?
No, I taped it off HBO.
And taped it off a TV. Well, the VHS came with 2 cassettes. It was 2 parts because the movie was so long. It was released by Paramount on December 9th, 1997, which is pretty late because at that point, the 80s had already happened and VHS exploded in the 80s. You would think it would have been around then. But it was only available for sale on that date. It was on Laserdisc, like I just mentioned, December 12th, 97. It came out right after the VHS.
I also seen it at a friend's house on Beta.
Betamax, yeah. Betamax was like VHS, but the tapes were a little bigger, and they were top loaders. Yes. Remember VCRs and Betamax machines were like monsters, man. They were like the size of a home computer. They were huge, and they were loud and noisy machines. It was released on DVD, October 9th, 2001. It was released on Blu-ray, September 23rd, 2008. Now, I had the DVDs, but when I upgraded to Blu-ray, I gave them to a friend, and she enjoyed, I think to this day, she's only seen the first movie of the 3. And it came out on 4K, which I upgraded to March 22nd, 2022. And it was re-released again on Blu-ray. Sometimes they rehash and re-release stuff once other ones go out of print. The 4K was nice. The 4K Legacy set came with 4 prints of Michael, his father, and Sonny. I think it was Sonny. or no, Michael Older from the third film. And I just wasn't willing to pay over $150 for prints. I said, no way, I'm not doing that. So I just upgraded to the regular Blu-rays. And I got to tell you, with the sepia look of the film isn't shot in black and white. It was shot in like a sepia look to the print. And it's hard to, I always thought 4Ks look darker than Blu-rays, but it is a sharp picture. Man, it does look good. I think, and what's nice is that there's plenty of film grain. You could still see plenty of film grain in the film. As far as pop culture goes, anything and everything is I'm wearing a Godfather shirt right now. The Simpsons, The Sopranos, we just talked about. Saturday Night Live did skits with Belushi as the Don back in the day.
Family Guy actually did an episode.
Family Guy. This is what I'm talking about. The Godfather, the whole thing reaches so far back. It's unbelievable. There's an episode of The Simpsons. I forget which one. Marge becomes a cop. And there's a scene where she beats up the suspect, but she beats him up like Sonny beats up Carlo in the film.
Yep.
Throws him over the railing, hits him with the trash can. And what's he say at the end of that scene? You touch my sister again, I'll kill you.
You think about it, because Sopranos, Tony died in a restaurant, and what?
You can't say that. You can't say that because the ending doesn't show him dying.
It doesn't show him dying, but
it's all up to the person watching.
It's implied.
It's implied, but it's not.
And what does Michael do? You
don't give away anything. People may not have seen the film.
Michael meets the police captain.
That's correct.
And the Turk.
That's correct. He has a meeting at a restaurant in Brooklyn. Or was in Jersey.
Oh, it's Brooklyn.
Because they turned around. Oh, that's right. He says we're going to Jersey. Yeah,
they go over the beat up at George Washington Bridge and then make the U-turn.
So in a minute, we're going to take a fast break, and we are going to come back with final thoughts, preview of our next show, and an interesting next show. It won't actually be about movies, and I'll talk about that in 1 second. Okay, everybody, we're back to wrap this bad boy up. I hope you've all enjoyed it. We've tried to take the film apart as best as possible. You know, I don't like giving out too much of the film. You got to see it. You got to see it and experience it. I don't like to give too much away but I hope we gave you a good synopsis about this picture, which is listed as one of the greatest pictures ever made as far as mafia movies go. My final thoughts are coming up. Let's talk to my buddy John one more time. And what are your final thoughts about the picture?
It's a good film.
Do you believe that it's outdated, or do you believe it still holds its own?
Still holds its own.
All right. Our next. It's time for my final thoughts. A lot of people don't like mafia films because they're too violent. A lot of people don't like violence. I know a lot of people don't even watch horror films because of the violence. But this is more about a family picture. It's more about how family is tight. Family in the film, Michael says, is the most important thing in his life. And he wants what his father had. His father had family around him, and Michael wants the same thing. And I guess in the end, we all want the same thing. Family around us. And it's what makes us happy. And that, my friends, brings this big, dumb show to an end. Just a quick note on our next show. I decided to do something a little different. Instead of a movie, we're going to be looking at movie soundtracks from movies. I should not surprise any of you that I own not only an extensive movie collection, but an extensive soundtrack collection also. Walking down the steps to the dungeon here, I'm digging through I brought with me three Godfather soundtracks. Out of the two, I'd have to pick the best. The second one's okay. The first one's the best. To me, the third one is it's more superior to the second film. You've heard all three soundtracks, Jay.
Yeah.
Which one do you think is the superior?
The third one.
The third picture, and unfortunately, the third picture isn't the best film of the three. But the soundtrack is very, very solid. That happens a lot in Hollywood. Soundtracks, they're sometimes they're better than the movie. And that's it. Thanks to Jay for letting me come over.
Not a problem.
and going over this wonderful film. And we'll have to do it again. We'll have to find another mafia movie and do it again. And that's it. And take care of yourselves, everybody. And until we see each other again, stay frosty.